All right. Good evening, everybody. We are now live. I'm Dr. Michael Kaye from the Center for Functional Health, and tonight I'm honored and so grateful for both Andy and Aaron Krafft to come on. They are the creators and hosts of LabRats podcast, and I've been listening to this now for a while. Absolutely enjoy every episode. I walk away learning something new. So, guys, I appreciate you both coming on tonight and spending some time with me. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
So I want to jump into how you guys went from finance to what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and we're grateful when we look back on it, just how just life events led us to kind of where we're at now. So Aaron and I have always we're brothers, and we've always kind of been into exercise and fitness, and like we were pretty active as kids. We did springboard diving. That was kind of our sport growing up, and baseball. And then, like we got into college, both went into accounting, and we're kind of off and on with our activity there. And then we both, when we graduated, we went into public accounting, and we were just working crazy hours. There were a few months out of the year where like I was working 80 to 100 hours per week, and I wasn't getting any sleep. And we're talking like 3 to 4 hours per night. Bad nutrition because it's all you're getting fast food or eating out every night. Very little movement. You're pretty much sitting for 18 hours per day, and very stressed. So it's like a perfect combination of bad health habits. And did that for 4 years. And then I moved into a career in financial planning where I have a little bit of more control over my schedule, which has given us the opportunity to, explore, LabRats and create health hack and things like that. So throughout that time, I saw the negative consequences of poor health choices, like physically, mentally, emotionally. And I think a lot of people don't even realize just how bad you feel until you get out of those situations. Like I knew I was getting bad sleep, but I thought I was handling it all right. It wasn't until I got out and got back on track and just until I saw just how physically and mentally destroyed I was. But the real catalyst, the real life event for my whole health journey, and then Aaron can talk about his, but for me, it was back in 2017. My wife, Katie, started to have some vision issues. Like she had this dark spot at the bottom of her eye, and then it just started gradually moving up her eye and just this like dark cloud. We didn't really know what was going on, didn't think much of it. And then it continued to get worse. So we went to the eye doctor, and he ruled out all the major eye conditions. So he wanted to get an MRI, which is when we, had the feeling, okay, this probably isn't great. And that's when she was diagnosed with MS, which, as you know, is an autoimmune condition. And that was a very scary time. MS, was messing with not only her vision, but like her motor skills. And that really was just a life-changing moment for her and I. And we didn't even realize, how life-changing it was until we tried to figure out how can we best manage her MS condition with diet and lifestyle. In addition to medication, she started on medication. She's still on medication, but she's not now because she's pregnant. But we wanted to optimize her health. Like, okay, she's under this. She has this autoimmune condition. There's not a cure for it right now, but like, how can we best manage it with diet and lifestyle? And we did some reading, and some of the old research on MS, mentioned like a low saturated fat diet. So we went plant-based for about 18 months, and that didn't work well. Like she was extremely fatigued, just tired all the time, no matter how much sleep she got. She had extremely low B12 levels because we weren't eating any meat. And eventually we stumbled upon Terry Walls. You probably know who Terry Walls is. She's a doctor that works with MS patients. She had MS herself, and she created this protocol, this diet and lifestyle protocol that is like a modified paleo diet. And so we tried that, and within a week, she had just, it was like life-changing. She had an incredible amount of energy. She was able to start exercising regularly. She was fully functioning. And she said that she feels better now than she did even before she was diagnosed with MS. And that was just like when we started to see the power of these lifestyle decisions, and how nutrition and exercise and sleep, like that, those things matter. And so that kind of kicked off my whole fascination with nutrition. I started reading about it a lot more, led to an interest in fitness, sleep, mindset. That's when I discovered, people like yourself and Mark Hyman, Chris Kresser, Rob Wolf, all those guys.
Yep.
And it just became fascinated with just how powerful, the way we treat our bodies, like those things matter. And, I wanted other people to have that realization without having to go through a chronic illness diagnosis before discovering that. And, that's why we wanted to start the podcast. And I'll stop rambling now and let Aaron kind of talk about, because we were on kind of different paths for this whole thing, but he kind of got to the same place I'm at as well.
Yeah. So I'm about 2 to 3 years younger than Andy is. And we both had the same career path where we went into public accounting right after college. So he worked at a public accounting firm, Big Four. I followed suit right after him, about 2 years. So I was just 2 years behind, but very similar experience where I went in and, you expect that transition from college to career to be a little uprooting and to cause, some stress. Like that's totally normal, but this was like that to the extreme. Like Andy mentioned, working 80-hour weeks. And even when you're not working 80-hour weeks during busy season, we called it, which is like the winter, even like your summer, you're still working long hours. And that has big impact on your physical health, on your mental health, on all other aspects of life. And I started to feel really bad, both physically and mentally. We had both been fairly healthy growing up, eating healthy, being active in sports, and that all came to a halt after starting our career. And what really, like one experience, which is not funny, it's actually really sad and crazy, that like I was working with one of my buddies at this accounting firm, and he was also working extreme hours, and he started feeling this chest pain, and it was getting worse and worse. And it got to a point where he had to call like an ambulance. And this is just a desk job. Like this is nothing crazy. You should not be calling an ambulance. So literally, like the ambulance came, he went to the hospital, and they just told him that this was all caused by excess stress. And like that blew my mind, that literally you're sitting there, you're not doing anything physically active, but just the constant nagging stress over and over, day after day, can cause you to like literally be hospitalized. And I was already at this point, this was for me 2 years in, I was already questioning whether I wanted to stay. And I'm like, if this is like taking a toll on your health, your physical health, your mental health, taking a toll on relationships, like I'm married, and that has to like go to the back burner, which is not right. Your friendships have to go to the back burner, which is not right. Your health goes to the back burner, and seeing all these things go to the wayside, and really your focus is your career. Like that's not the life I wanted. That's not the life, Andy, you wanted. So we both decided to move into a career where we could put our family, put our health in front of a career. So that's really what got us like interested in health in the first place. And then we started this, I guess how we started the podcast in the first place was about a year and a half ago, 2 years, I guess 2 years ago is when we started talking about health. So we had both moved out of our career at that point, or our first job at that point. And we were just always talking about different health trends, different topics. And we would always have these like 2-hour conversations just about random health topics. Because we both read about it in our free time. We were just amazed by the power a healthy diet, healthy sleep, healthy relationships could have, because we both saw that transition from a career to a healthy lifestyle, what that looked like. So after having multiple conversations over and over about health, we decided, why don't we just record this and see what happens? Let's see where it goes. So we booked like just a podcasting studio one day out of the blue, and we recorded an episode and just started talking about random health topics. And eventually that led into us creating the LabRats podcast, which we now take, more trendy topics and kind of break it down and to see what the truth is behind those trendy topics. So it's definitely been a journey for both of us. And yeah, that transition from a crazy, 80-hour week career to a more balanced lifestyle has made a massive impact on our physical and our mental health.
Well, I'm sorry about the way you got here, but I'm glad you guys got here because you guys are doing a great job. And by changing your lifestyle, you guys have just tacked years of healthy, long living to you both. So kudos, you guys
Thank you.
are doing great with that. You think about the type of work that you guys did, and it was all done sitting too, right? So it's not even active work, but you think about the physical detriments that were occurring on that cellular level. You almost should get paid hazard pay, but you weren't getting paid hazard pay for it whatsoever. But you guys are doing some damage, and thank God you're not doing that anymore. What I really love about what you guys do is like you guys like, okay, well, it's one thing to read something, but it's another thing like, hey, we're going to do it onto ourselves, right? And I love what you guys did with the addiction episodes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we did like a 3-episode series on breaking addictions. I think we started with sugar, alcohol, and caffeine. And these are things that I feel like the majority of the population are in some way addicted to. And I think, addiction is more of a spectrum. You have addictions that, people, need some serious counseling and some help to get through those. But then I think there's a dependency that a lot of people have, but because maybe it's not a full-blown addiction, people don't think it's a problem. But really, like excess, sugar intake, that can really, that has a cost. Same thing with excess alcohol and excess caffeine. Caffeine, not so much as like alcohol and sugar, but a lot of the way that people consume caffeine is an issue, like with energy drinks and these big sugary drinks at Starbucks. So, we wanted to take these things and do 30 days without each of them. So we did like 3 separate months. We did 30 days without any kind of added sugar. So I think we continued to eat like fruit, but it was just basically like a whole foods diet, no sugar added to anything. And then we did 30 days without alcohol and 30 days without caffeine, which was tough because we both really like coffee. But I think, the reason like the experimenting is so important is because everyone is so different. Everyone has, different biology, different genes, different life experiences up to that point. And so adding or removing something can have a huge impact. And we wanted to see how does that work on us specifically. And that's kind of the premise of the whole show is like, well, how does it work for us? And how can you begin to go experiment with these things? So, that series was, it was tough because it was a long period of time without things that are pretty enjoyable for most people. But I think it was worthwhile. I think we both kind of got our own takeaways from each of those. Like for me, I mentioned this on the alcohol episode, but I wasn't like drinking a ton of alcohol, but I was having, wine. Again, I don't have a problem with wine, but like, I was having a glass or two every night, and it kind of became clear that like the purpose of that was for stress relief as opposed to just like enjoying a glass of wine with dinner. And so, maybe I was somewhere on the dependency spectrum. I didn't have a hard time giving it up. So like I wasn't addicted. It was fine giving it up for 30 days. But like that experiment brought that to light. So, and then Aaron, I think you probably had a rough time with coffee because you're a big coffee lover.
Yeah. No, I think with all 3 of these things, really all of them, there's like social norms around all of them, around eating sugar, drinking alcohol, consuming caffeine. And I think it's important for everybody to step back. Like that's the reason we picked those 3, because it's the 3 most common to have in your life routinely, and without realizing how much you consume them, how much excess consumption there is. Like we talked about in the alcohol episode, some of the statistics on alcohol sales like during the pandemic and alcohol consumption during the pandemic, and it like absolutely skyrocketed. I want to actually pull them up real quick because they're pretty insane. So I think in March of 2020, which is right when things started to close down, alcohol sales were up 55%. And online alcohol sales were up by 243%. So significant dependence on this by looking at this. And similar with sugar, like we know sugar is a significant problem in the United States specifically. 2/3 of Americans are overweight and a third of Americans are obese. So it's very clear that these substances can be very damaging. So we really want to show the importance of stepping back and just reevaluating your relationship with each of them and make sure that you have that healthy relationship. And one way to do that is remove it from your life for 30 days and see how you respond. That's a little bit of an extreme approach. You don't have to take that approach, but really just looking and seeing, like, is this something I need in my life consistently? Can I back off it? Do I have a healthy relationship with it? And for me, caffeine was the hardest of those. And I think the biggest issue with caffeine, which we were mentioning this before the show, is that people's caffeinated drinks typically aren't healthy drinks. When people talk about caffeine, it's typically not just like a black coffee or a black or green tea. Typically, those drinks come with sugar, which is the other issue. They're filled with all these different additives and sugar, and like, a Starbucks drink can have upwards of 80 grams of sugar and like hundreds and hundreds of calories in it, and it really can quickly get you in a dangerous place. So I think overall, the importance of these episodes was just to show how we need to reevaluate our relationship with each of them.
And like one thing that, just throughout the research, it was really interesting to see how things like sugar and alcohol and caffeine to some extent activates, the brain's reward center by triggering the production of dopamine, which happens during thrill-seeking activities. And like a lot of our food is created to, trigger that dopamine release. And the more that we do that, the more that we need to kind of push the limit further to get that same reward response. So that feeling keeps us chasing for more and more. And I think that happens, obviously with drugs, but alcohol too, and especially sugar. And I think that's why you see these like crazy desserts, or just go walk down the snack aisle, like the amount of like sugars and like crazy dessert contraptions that they create to just, activate that reward center of the brain. It keeps us addicted.
Right. The single chocolate wasn't good. We have the triple chocolate, whatever.
Yes.
So, I mean, they just keep raising the bar, and you're right. It's a very brain thing. And I always say, you're feeding the beast is what you're doing.
Yep.
And the beast wants more, wants more and more and more. And that's the way it goes, and you're right. It is social norms, and those three things all around social norms. I'm not a drinker, and I've been out with, other professionals, and it's like, I don't drink. Like, oh, why don't you drink? Right. So like not drinking is like almost personally offensive to someone,
Yeah.
Like, so it gets really odd from that social perspective. So we'll go around. So my coffee, it's it's a organic coffee from a local person over here. It's called Perfect Day. And
nice.
I throw in my brain octane oil. I throw in my 5-blend mushroom extract. I throw in some maca powder. So, the coffee is and I nurse that until about 1 or 2 when I have my first meal. So what do you guys put in your coffee? What makes your coffee magical?
I keep mine fairly simple. So I do like just a USDA organic coffee. I try to, when I can, like buy it local, but typically I'll buy just like an organic one from Meyer, because we buy it in bulk there. We go through quite a bit of coffee, but I keep mine simple. I drink it just black, but I put in a scoop of collagen and some creatine.
Excellent.
Yeah. I keep mine pretty simple. I normally just do like black coffee, but sometimes I'll do the bulletproof, or I'll throw in, ghee or butter with some MCT oil. I'll also throw in some mushroom powder, like I don't know if you ever tried the Laird Hamilton's mushroom powder mix.
Yep.
Like 4 different types of mushrooms, I think. So sometimes I'll add that in, and that, it takes it to the next level.
Right. That's where the coffee drink becomes the power drink.
Right.
Really, really enjoy it. And getting patients turned on to that, it's great. You talked about the whole sugar thing. When we get patients to the point where they're not eating a lot of sugar, and then they have something like blueberries, they're like, "Wow, this is really sweet." It's like,
right.
Can't believe this is so sweet. And the brain is just trying to come down off that constant sugar hit.
Oh yeah. We experienced that when we did no sugar for 30 days. Well, no, because we did fruit then. We also did a month of carnivore, and that's we we just had meat then, or animal products, and no fruit. But then, yeah, you go back and you realize even like a berry is so sweet, or like an apple or a banana. And then, the thought of even doing like a cake or an Oreo would just be like insane, because it's just like we weren't made to process that much, in that form consistently. So yeah, it kind of just brings you back to like how we were supposed to eat.
Yeah, your taste bud, like after eating that carnivore, your taste buds really change, and you crave different things. Like even after doing that, so if we were off carnivore for like a week and we'd have a meal without meat in it, or without something just like substantial with good proteins and fats, if I were just to eat like a spaghetti or something, then I would not feel like full. You crave that high quality protein and fat, and your taste buds evolved, and you have less cravings for like less cravings for sugar. Something just like as simple as honey is more than enough to subside those cravings. Like just a tablespoon of honey like tastes incredible, and like that's all you need. But when you're on a standard American diet where you're eating that stuff consistently, you just need more and more and more to, I mean, it's addiction. It's the classic example of addiction. The same amount, like the same dose next time doesn't give you the same feeling that you had the previous time. So you need more and more sugar, more and more fat, more and more processed carbs. And you end up to where many of us are today. Many Americans are today.
Agreed. And many of them are sick, right? So we know more about health than we ever did before. And, aside from our last 2 years of kicking some science to the side and stuff, that aside, we really know more about our health than we ever before. And look at the numbers. I mean, the rate of diabetes and just cardiometabolic disease in of itself it's growing. It's not going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, right. We're sicker than we've ever been before, yet we know more
than ever before.
Yeah.
Some may argue, we're catching it, more now. We're looking for it more. But to be honest with you, that's not true. I mean, we're just really just sicker than we were before. So before we get to sleep, let's talk about our other favorite drink, Element, right? So it's great. I was, again, blown away by guys getting Rob Wolf on. That was huge. A big fan of his as well. Element's a great balance of electrolyte, that balance between that sodium, potassium, magnesium. In my office, we use that from that clinical approach. It really helps our patient with brain fog, our patient with headaches, patient with bonking, that afternoon where they're going for that 2:00, really just horrible granola bar. It was like, hey man, just, try drinking more water, try drinking this. And we see that pick me up. So how do you guys use it in your end? Use it basically for training purposes during the day?
Yeah. I typically use it like an hour or so before a workout. Like we do CrossFit type workouts, and normally we're like out in the garage, and especially this time of year, it like starts to get hot, so we're sweating a lot. And the urge is to to go back inside and like chug some water. But I find that like I feel a lot better if I actually like get a little electrolytes in there. So sometimes I'll do like a full pack before and like half a pack after, or split it up. But yeah, after I like lose a lot of electrolytes from working out, because they're fairly intense workouts, and like I'm in North Carolina, so it's really hot and humid. You're sweating a lot. You're losing a lot. But like I noticed that, number one, I just have a little extra boost in energy during my workout. I don't cramp up like I used to, and I feel less fatigued afterwards. Like after replenishing with the water and the sodium, magnesium, and potassium, I feel like I can bounce back quicker.
Excellent.
Yeah, I use it for the same purpose. I typically for me personally, I like to split it up a little bit before and after a workout. Using it before workout will be good for preventing any potential cramps if you're prone to cramping, especially if you're running and you maybe get cramps in your calf. It's really good at preventing that. So I like to take half a pack before, half a pack after. And if it's like midsummer and I'm sweating a lot, losing a lot of sodium, then I'll maybe even do a whole second pack afterwards. I think it depends on the person, what your needs are. But I guess the reason it's like specifically important for people who eat like a healthier diet, there's not a lot of, I guess, sodium in a healthy diet, which is, people look at it and it's like, 1,000 grams of sodium, that's a lot. Where in reality, when you're eating a whole foods diet, you're not getting, a ton of sodium that you'd be getting in like a meal from McDonald's. Like that could be your sodium intake for the day. But when you're eating a whole foods healthy diet, you could use a little bit more sodium, and Element's a great, quick, and tasty way to get that.
Agreed. So let's talk about the subjects of sleep. So many patients just waking up tired, fatigued. Some patients not getting enough sleep. I know patients that get the sleep trackers, but they're not really doing much with the information they get. So what have you guys found with the sleep trackers? And, what do you share with, your listeners about the importance of sleep? How to get better sleep? I mean, there's the chilling pad and there's, blackout, shades and all that kind of stuff. But how do we go from, sleeping deep, right? And when you talked about in the beginning, you didn't sleep. I can tell you, sometimes they not sleeping, people wear that as a badge of honor.
Oh, I know.
5 hours a night, right? I can go 5. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. I mean, going through, school and working at the same time, listen, it's just, there was 5 hours of sleep.
Right.
But it catches up to you, right? It really does age you, but it really affects you on a cellular level. So what can you guys share about sleep and sleep trackers?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because that was like part of the I don't know, a badge of honor at these accounting firms. It's like people judged you kind of based on how late you were online and like how quickly you got up the next morning. Like it was just this culture, I guess.
And if you were to get if you got like more than 6 hours, that would be considered like lazy, which is just like so crazy that we associate sleep with laziness. And I think that's why people like don't think they need 8 hours. It's really associated with a lack of discipline in our society for some reason.
Yeah, and Aaron, you had quoted this a couple times when we talked about sleep. The number of people that actually have the ability to get less than 5 or 6 hours of sleep, like 99.9% of people need at least 7 hours per night. But if you talk to like most people, they think I can survive on 5 or 6. But really, that's not the case.
Nope. You're going to pay a price somehow, right? And we even find like people with our IBS kind of scenarios. Sometimes we got to work on their sleep.
Yeah. Aaron, what was that stat with the gene?
Oh yeah, it's called the DEC2 gene, and very few people have it. I don't know what the exact stat is, but it's like way less than 1%, I want to say, or it's 1%. It's very, very small. Odds are you don't have it, but it's a gene mutation where you can get 6 hours or less a night and not have these detrimental side effects. And a lot of people think when you poll the average person, they think, oh yeah, if I get 6 or 7, I'm fine. But odds are, if you get 6 or 7, typically you're not fine. There are very, very few people who can survive on that healthily.
Yeah, and it's once you kind of look at the data for what happens when you get less than 7, it's pretty startling. I mean, this. Sleep is very tightly integrated with the body's ability to absorb glucose. And so, I guess for people that listen or watch this, we need fuel to exercise, and a lot of what we eat is converted to glucose. Our cells absorb that, convert to glycogen, and then it's used for energy later. And insulin tells the body, "Hey, there's glucose, go absorb it." Well, it's interesting when you look at the lack of sleep and how that impacts your insulin sensitivity. So there was a study that was done where they took a group of healthy individuals and sleep deprived them to 4 hours per night for just 6 nights. And after those 6 nights, their body was way less effective at absorbing glucose compared to when they got 8 hours of sleep. And it would actually, they would have been labeled pre-diabetic based on their body's insulin response. And that was just 6 nights of poor sleep. And these were fit, healthy people. And, when you don't get that sleep, your body is just much less effective at converting and storing the food that you eat as fuel. So you're going to get fatigued sooner. Your endurance will suffer, your muscle strength will drop. I think a lot of people think that, well, if they just eat super healthy and if they exercise a lot, then they can cancel out the effects of poor sleep.
Right.
But that just doesn't happen. Our bodies need sleep. It's, we've said it before, like, I think it may be the most important pillar of health, except the problem is a lot of us just use it as a plug to life.
Right. I mean, you look at the people who do the swing shifts. I mean, they're more prone to vitamin B deficiency. They're more prone to diabetes. So, I mean, there is a true physical, cellular, we won't even go down the road of mitochondrial effects on lack of sleep. I was listening to one show where she's a nurse and she would work the second shift, often with overtime, get into a car, open the sunroof, put her ponytail on the sunroof, close it. So if she gets to a stoplight or she starts dipping down, it's going to jerk her neck back.
Wow.
Right. So yes, I know you get paid a differential if you work, a different shift, and I get that. But just like when you guys are doing all the accounting, it becomes the money is not worth it, right? I mean,
right.
It's not worth your health and the end game. So when we look at sleep, there's the Oura Ring, the Whoop strap. Do you guys each use a different one? Do you use like one versus the other?
Yes, I think we've tried a few different kinds. We've tried Fitbit, Apple Watch, Whoop, and Oura. I did the Whoop for a couple of months, and that was really good for. It seemed to be geared towards more endurance athletes, and with the focus being fitness, with kind of sleep more on the side. At least when I did it, this was over a year ago, so I know they've changed some things. So I switched over to using the Oura. That's what Andy uses as well. And it's just a great like overall fitness device. It's not geared towards the fit person. It's not geared towards like just sleep. It's really good for overall wellness. Like it looks at your different stages of your sleep. It looks at like your respiratory rate, your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, body temperature. So lots of great data from it. And it's really not intrusive at all. Some people don't like wearing a band on their wrist. It's just kind of for us, it just replaces our wedding band. So it's very easy to sleep with. And, there are upsides and downsides to having a sleep tracker or just a tracker of any kind. Some people can get very fixated on their scores and obsess over that. And that can almost have the opposite effects. You can really have a bad relationship with that data, and it can maybe affect your fitness, affect your sleep. But if you aren't, I guess if you're able to use that data for good, not obsess over it, and just kind of look at it every once in a while, just to make sure you're on a good trend, then it can be an excellent tool. And that's kind of the category we fall into. We try to check up on it every few days and just make sure that trend is not, going down to a bad place, and that we're consistently getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, I like Aaron said, I also use the Oura, which I really like just because it's small, it's convenient, and it's a good conversation starter. When you tell people your Ring is a fitness tracker, they're just blown away. But I did use the Fitbit for a while, but I just didn't really like sleeping with it. But the Fitbit Charge is actually like really accurate at tracking sleep. There's a YouTube channel. The Quantified Scientist. And he has access to like an EEG machine because he's I think he's a sleep scientist, and he measured his scientific data or scientific tools with these sleep trackers. And like the Fitbit Charge is actually really good. The Oura is also good at tracking sleep. The Apple Watch and the what's the one you just
Whoop.
talked about? The Whoop. Yeah, the Apple Watch and the Whoop are good at sleep. They're not as good as like the Oura and the Fitbit, but they're great at measuring heart rate for like activity. The Polar H10, I think that's just for heart rate. That's another one. If you really want to take your sleep tracking to the next level, there's a machine you can get for your head called the Hypnodyne. It's like $1,000. So basically nobody used it, but that's like basically like a kind of like an EEG machine that really tracks your sleep. But yeah, I love Oura. It's good at measuring your heart rate and your HRV, so I can see like how well I've recovered the next day. It's just like Aaron said, important not to like obsess over the data, but like I definitely use the data to influence my decisions. Like I'll if I got really bad sleep, I will just take it easy the next day in a workout. Or I can see how different things impact my sleep. Like I know we did an experiment with this, like wine, for instance, that always tanked my REM sleep, which is you need for that mental and emotional cognitive recovery. And if I'm drinking wine and every night I'm just not getting REM, like that's not good, and that's going to affect my health and longevity. So it's like things like that. Like I noticed that if I take magnesium before bed, like that increases my REM sleep. I know that if I eat a big meal, like a big carb or sugary meal, before bed, like that's going to impact my deep sleep. So all these like little things, like you can just kind of tweak, and it really does make a difference in the long run.
Yeah, I know it gives you like a ready score, right? So it gives you a ready score. So what ready score do you guys look at? You say, okay, well, today I'm not going to lift. Will you lift at a 75? Will you lift at an 80?
So the readiness score is based upon a bunch of different things. It takes sleep into consideration. Obviously, I think it weighs heavier towards sleep. But for me, I typically just look at sleep alone. And if I got it depends how I feel too. But if I get like less than 5 hours, which that's fairly rare, but if that happens, then I typically won't even think about working out. I try to get at least 6 to 6.5 before I think about working out. But yeah, I try to look at my total sleep time rather than like a recovery score to determine how active I'm going to be that day.
Yeah, I look at sleep and then my heart rate variability. Like if my heart rate variability like went way down, typically that's tightly correlated with my sleep. But yeah, if I got bad night of sleep and low HRV, I say I'm not going to. I'm going to take it easy. So like, I'm not going to do an intense CrossFit workout. I'll walk. Like I'll always be moving. Even if I have a bad recovery score, like below. I like to see it above 80, but if it's below that, yeah, like I'll take it easy on the workout, but always trying to move. So I try to do like 2 or 3 walks a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and then the evening, just to keep movement. It's not good to sit around all day.
Right. So we talked about sleep, which is great, and I'm sure we can go on that. Let's talk about next thing. Let's talk about sustenance, right? So you brought up the fact that when Katie went on the Walls protocol, much better because she was eating meat. Aaron, you talked about carnivore diet. So I'm still lucky in my area. We still have a lot of farms. So we got Bolton's turkey farm, so I get fresh turkey. We got Hirschberger's farm. We still got a lot of great farms. We can get really good quality meat. And I make my patients into meat snobs. I get them like, hey, you and your neighbor can buy a steer together, and get yourself a big freezer. And once they get hooked on to the quality, it's amazing the results they get. So from a nutritional perspective, do each of you follow kind of the same paleo primal approach, or because I can tell you we have like a lot of times we'll have vegetarians and vegan. And I get where they're coming from, but also they come in, they're very sick, right? They're missing something that's very important. Or we have the patient who says, I've read where, vegetables are important and I got to go raw. And their complaint is my gut is killing me, right? So their gut can't handle it. Right. So what do you guys like to follow?
Yeah, I think over the years, both of our diets have really changed a lot as we figured out what works best for us. Like we've gone through almost every stage imaginable. Years ago, we did go like full plant based, and it wasn't like your junk food vegan. Like we were eating pretty high quality plant foods. I think Andy, how long did you do that for? I did it for about 4 to 5 months. I want to say. I think Andy, you did it a little bit longer, didn't you?
Yeah, like 18 months. I think year and a half.
Okay, so yeah, we did that. I guess before that, we were eating. Just not really focused on a healthy diet, just probably avoiding sugars in general, but not like following a specific plan. And then we went plant-based. And then after plant-based, I think we did transition to more of a paleo-esque diet. I know I personally consumed a little bit more grains than Andy did. I would eat things like, and still do, like things like sourdough bread, healthier, I guess, grains and grains that are less inflammatory. So I think it's really transitioned over the years. We did carnivore for 30 days to see how that felt. And it's really taken some time just to find out what works for us specifically. And for me, that is close to a paleo diet with added grains in. And I think, Andy, you've probably landed to a similar ending point, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So like Aaron said, early on, it was just, I guess, definitely growing up, it was more standard American diet. In college, lots of fast food. I was a regular at Taco Bell, like my senior year of college, and then, plant-based. And, and that I didn't have the energy that I do now. And then, I switched to paleo, and even within paleo, I've tweaked a little bit, like going from, lower carb to bringing in some more carbs. And like where I feel best is honestly, like primarily animal foods. Like I do like a lot of like eggs, and we have a farmer's market that we go to. We get a lot of stuff, locally. So it's, high quality stuff. I do like a lot of, eggs, sausage, meats, fish. But I found that I don't feel great. I feel good like doing lower carb, but I need to have something for my workout. So like for those high intensity workouts, like I need to do a banana or maybe some sweet potatoes in the morning. I generally feel better without like breads, like in grains, but still some sort of carbs to fuel my workout. So that's generally what a day looks like. It's pretty much really is a whole foods diet. I probably lean more towards animal-based foods, but definitely get like broccoli, cauliflower, sweet potatoes, carrots, all that good stuff in.
Yeah,
but wait, guys, eating meat will equal high cholesterol. Eating fat will equal fat. You're gonna kill yourself.
I know.
Right?
I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's been interesting, trying to navigate that conversation, because it's like politics has become very polarizing, and it's hard to have a nuanced conversation around that. And you kind of have to, I'm sure you have to do this all the time, like kind of deconstruct people's thinking about meat, because we've been told since the 50s that, saturated fat is causing heart disease, high cholesterol is causing heart disease, it's going to kill us. And you have to kind of unwind that. And if you look at I don't know if you've ever read the Big Fat Surprise by Nina, I can't remember her name, but she goes through like the whole history of how saturated fat, became the villain. And it's really fascinating when you look at just how a lot of the data just doesn't add up. There was a lot of early on, there was a lot of like, money and influence that kind of led this narrative to become what it is. And I like to think that we're opening our eyes to that, but then you see things like Meatless Mondays, and it makes me think we've still got a long way to go.
We do. I've been practicing for 32 going on 33 years now. So I've seen a lot of whoops, we got it wrong. That's all right. Whoops, So, again, the marketing behind, milk does the body good. It's crazy. You hear all these things. And even if you look back, we had at one time the AMA actually supporting, smoking, right? Nicotine does.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You look back at some of the ads and the marketing, you're like, oh my God, this is even with like DDT. Some of the old pictures, like this is like messed up. It's really like, and some damage was done. But again, when we talk about carnivore, when we talk about eating meat, we have a tendency, especially, I listen to a lot of guys say, they go to the steakhouse and they put down like a 32-ounce steak, right? And you got to admit, though, you guys aren't putting down 32-ounce steak every time you eat a piece of meat, right?
Yeah.
And they're so proud, right? It's like the sleep. They're so proud of the little sleep. So proud of 32-ounce steak. You never hear anybody put down like, I put down 32-ounce wild salmon.
No.
Right? My first question would be like, what do you do for a living? Right? You bought 32 ounces of wild salmon, right? And you ate it once. What do you do for a living? Right? So it gets absolutely crazy when people think that being carnivore is just eating ounces and ounces of meat, and it's not like that at all. And you've seen the studies where you can eat, like a piece of steak, but if it's mashed with some broccoli or cauliflower, its effects aren't like just eating it alone. So that's also important to look at. But again, when we talk about, when we hear eating meat's bad, it's always like, it's never like that good piece of meat, at the local farmer's market. It's always some, hamburger patty from, name your joint wherever, so it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's like they've clumped all meat into the same bucket.
Right.
Like, well, like Aaron, like you get your meat from, like, you see the cows. You have a
Right.
friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, that's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to go off that. Like when you, all the studies around meat, like you're surveying people, you ask them, do you eat meat? And then you look at how their health span lived out. And someone who ate McDonald's burgers every single day, and someone like us who, like, I eat my meat from a grass-fed cow that my friend raised. And yeah, we both eat meat. We both eat red meat, and maybe the same amount of red meat, but what else is with that? And that makes all the difference. But that's what's so hard about the nutritional studies around meat, and why you see a lot of these like negative headlines. A lot of them don't separate out those two groups, and it can skew the data, and it's easy to make it look bad when in reality it's often the other things that are alongside that meat that you're eating.
Right. Especially when you eat meat and like they didn't ask, like, do you eat meat and do you smoke?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, we don't look at the other factors that come into play.
Right.
Did you guys ever see that Morgan Spurlock documentary where he did the McDonald's?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, his liver enzymes. Remember the doc saying, like, I swear to God, you'd be like looking at your liver enzymes, I think you're an alcoholic. I mean, and he would say, man, you smell. It was one hell of a documentary. I mean, that was,
it's crazy.
That was crazy to think what damage it was doing to his body. And of course, obviously, he was eating it breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So
every meal for like 30 days or something like that. Yeah,
it gets a little crazy. So we're talking about food. You guys did this $30 a week type of budget for food. How that blew me away. So I got this issue with food. I know, Andy, you're on the Charlotte, right? It's a
it's a nonprofit. Families Forward Charlotte.
Yeah, Families Forward Charlotte. I think there's just so much food waste. It's one of the things that just drives me up a wall. When I go to a local supermarket and it's 9:30 at night and I see them just like throwing excellent food off the buffet, from all our convenience stores to throw away food, to college dorms that throw away food, to hotels, motels. I mean, all these places just chucking away food, I mean, and, so that one really gets my goat, as they say. And, I think we have to find a way to change that. And I love what you guys did with that $30 per week. And why don't you share about that whole thing? Because I mean, that was $30 is not a lot of money, period.
No, it wasn't. It was very tough. And what we wanted to do was see if it's possible to eat, healthy on a budget, or eat healthy. Like if you were living on just the, like the benefits from your state, like the state sponsored, food stamps, SNAP benefits. Like, and that was what it ended up being for like North Carolina and Indiana. And I mean, it was tough. It was harder than I thought, because I mean, I really had to plan out, and you really had to look at what you were consuming. Like, if I only have $30 a day, number one, I need to get calories, because I don't have much weight to lose. So I need to get calories, but like I need to get nutrients. I need to get protein, fats, carbs, and fiber. And I need to get those from high quality sources. Because the whole point was, can you do this on a budget? Like, or can you do this while eating healthy? Because a lot of people can live on that. I mean, you can get Pop-Tarts, bagels for cheap, and
pop ramen.
Ramen, frozen pizza, all that kind of stuff. We're like, oh, how can we eat a whole foods diet? And I mean, we were able to do it. It was difficult, and you had to be really intentional about every meal that you created. And I don't know about you, Aaron, but like I basically got through the whole food. I didn't waste anything by the end of it.
Yeah, no, I didn't really have anything left. And I think, sitting down before this, both of us, we did this separately and came together after to talk about kind of the approach we took. But we both like mapped out like how many calories are we going to eat total? Like how many do we need to survive? How many do we need to sustain our fitness? And then we broke out like how much do we want to be fat? The macronutrients, fat, protein, carbs. And like we have this background in nutrition knowledge, and we were able to build a healthy diet for $30 a week. But like Andy said, it was a challenge. And these are for people who look at this stuff and have read up on this stuff for years and years, and we still found it hard to do. And I think that just goes to show like that the one of the biggest issues around the weight problem, the health problem, all the chronic disease in America is lack of information. People just don't know what to do. They don't know how to build a healthy diet. They don't know the detrimental impacts of eating things like a standard American diet. And it does take a lot of work and a lot of research and effort to construct a healthy diet. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't have that knowledge.
Yeah, and a lot of people, especially a lot of people that are, living paycheck to paycheck, have busy lives, kids that they're trying to feed, and they're going to look at the marketing on the front, and the food marketing is just, it's criminal. Like some of the stuff that is put on there. You look at even like Honey Nut Cheerios. It's like lowers your cholesterol or something like that. Zero fat, but it's literally just sugar and refined carbs. Like that's all it is. But that's mostly what people are eating, and that's like what a lot of kids are getting. That's nutrients that like kids, they need to grow and survive and form a healthy gut and a healthy brain. But most of them are just living on sugar and refined carbs because that's what the marketing tells us. And it's you kind of have to dig for a lot of information, a lot of the information that's accurate.
Yeah, that's why I liked what you guys did with the last newsletter. We're talking about food labels, and I'm always teaching my patients to look at food labels, and I try to get them to the point where there is no label. Because if I can get them to the point where there is no label,
yep,
then I'm good to go, right? We're okay. So it's amazing what they get away with, and obviously I think they're doing the best of changing. There's some changes to the food label now, but it's nowhere near where we need to be with respect to transparency. And I think we need to, they should be teaching this to kids in school, right? They're teaching them all these other things. Why don't we teach them how to eat right, and how to look for what's good and what's not good. But again, sometimes like you guys said, you're stuck on a budget. And you're stuck on a budget, and you have kids, and okay, so as a parent, you're going to always eat something not so great, so you give your kids something that is good, and you're going to see that. So, I think that one there was really amazing what you guys did, and it's really hard if you're not making a decent salary to get decent food.
Yeah. And just like the time to to research and like look for conflicting information. You know how it is. Like when you just go read, like if you just read the health headlines, there's contrary data all the time. It's like every week, it's like eggs are bad for us. No, they're not. Eggs are bad. No, they're not. And it's like back and forth. It's like, well, how is anybody that's just scrolling through, no background in health and no interest in doing the digging, how are they supposed to know, what's good and what's not? And that's why, that's why we wanted to do the podcast and the newsletter, because we wanted to take all these clickbaity headlines and, okay, let's actually boil them down into a way that anybody can understand it, in a way that is, entertaining and informative and, short, digestible. So I think it's needed. Like you said, I think we have a long way to go, but hopefully we're moving in the right direction.
Right. And we got to be fair, because those clickbait headlines also falls over into, our field, where we're saying, this vitamin can fix everything, and this mineral is the answer to all your problems. So we got to be cognizant of that. A lot of local docs that I work with, neuro, primary, GI, and talk about nutrition, and with respect to nutrition and MS, or nutrition and IBS, and nutrition and brain fog and headache, and we get the puppy dog law. Well, probably not. And it's like, well, probably we have nothing to lose, though, right? We have nothing to lose to at least change the lifestyle. So we get a lot of, well, that may not work. Well, let's try first, and maybe we can find that blend between maybe we do need medicine, maybe we do need supplements, we do need lifestyle change. So we see a lot on our side, like how a certain supplement, or this probiotic is better than your probiotic, and I'm going to tell you why. And I'm like, do you need a probiotic? We read probiotics are great, but I can also tell you guys, like, listen, I've taken patients off of probiotics, and they go, I feel much better.
No, it's not for everyone. And that's why, like, I love the, the functional approach. Number one, it's about preventing and reversing instead of just suppressing symptoms, but it actually allows for you to take the time to get to know a person and tweak. Like, it's not just, let's slap a Band-Aid on this and send you on your way. And then, you have more problems 10 years down the road because we never got to the root of the issue. Like, you actually have the time to spend with your patients and, go back and forth and tweak. What worked for someone may not work for somebody else. So these blanket recommendations don't work. So I think that's why your approach to medicine is, and that's the way that it needs to be.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, we meet with our patients every week virtually. So I speak to my patient every single week through the program.
Wow.
And because, a week, a lot of stuff happens in a week, right? And if you're eating something different, you may feel a little bit different. And, and then we're always pushing up against, well, you know what my sister said? You know what my brother said?
Yeah.
So, I tell my patients, I say, listen, here's a copy of your blood work. Here's a copy of the report of your stool sample. So when you're at the picnic and somebody tells you what you're doing wrong, just hand them the lab work and ask them to interpret it for you, right?
Yeah.
And of course, it's always met with, I don't know what to tell you, right? Because that they don't know what that is, right? So meeting with the patients, talking with them, actually learning about them, I mean, it makes a big difference. And again, now I point my patients to your newsletter to get solid information. I'm very comfortable with sharing information. There's a lot of folks out there where I'm not comfortable with. And I'm like, hey, listen, you're listening to somebody who's giving you wrong information. They just want you to buy their product.
Right.
I really, again, like what you guys do. So as we come to a close, if each of you guys can share, what would be your one tip? Well, two things to share. One tip for longevity, and what book do you think can help somebody move forward? What book changed you?
That's good. For longevity, I mean, I know we're both going to want to say the same thing, but since I got to it first, I'll say it. I mean, sleep. Like, that is something that I pushed aside for so long. And even now, it's easy for me to just, I'm busy today. I got to get up early. I'll get 5 hours of sleep just tonight. But like that, the longer you do that, like, it is going to cut down on your lifespan. Like, that is like the number one thing that I personally am trying to improve and has had the biggest impact. Like, when I get adequate sleep, I mean, everything just starts working. So that's my one, I guess, tip for longevity. It's like, prioritize sleep. Don't make it the plug to life. And then a book. Well, go ahead, Aaron. Do you have yours?
I'll go with book now. For me, I guess the number one book that's really helped me in the past few years it's one called Digital Minimalism. And this, for anybody who just has somewhat of an addiction to technology, is on their phone all the time, on their computer all the time, and just needs a break. That book helped me so much. Just unplug, disconnect. And it's so hard to do that, especially this past year when everything has gone virtual. It's even harder to just step away, get out in nature and completely disconnect from everything. And I'd say that book has been the biggest help for really my mental health. So Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Book for me, a really impactful book. This is more on the nutrition side, is Sacred Cow by Diana Rogers and Rob Wolf. I mean, because, I did like a lot of reading on the nutritional side of meat, but they get into the environmental and the ethical side of meat, which is another big argument against meat. And they talk about how well-raised meat can be good nutritionally, ethically and environmentally. And it's amazing the amount of data and work that they poured into that to build this case for regenerative agriculture. So that was one of my favorites that I've read in the past year.
Yeah, that was a great book. Really enjoyed it. I loved his Wired to Eat as well. I thought that was a great book. Yep. So many great books and so little time, right? So
I know. I wish I could just spend all day reading this stuff.
Yeah, that would be great. That's why you guys get to do this now, right? So you can spend all day reading and then talk about this kind of stuff on the show. So it's great.
Yeah.
We can share with everybody how they can listen to your show and also how they can get the Health Hack newsletter.
Yeah. So you can listen to LabRats podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, anywhere. And then our Instagram is Health Hacked. You can just search on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then to sign up for the Health Hacked newsletter, you can find a link on any of those social media platforms or go to healthhacked.com. And that's hacked without the E. So health, HACKD.
The one with the E was like a 10 grand domain. So we're like, let's just drop the E and, it's be trendy. And we
Yep.
go about it that way. But
We're
yeah,
still good to go.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
fantastic. Well, listen, thank you both very, very much. I really appreciate it. Great. I knew it was going to be wonderful. I hope to speak to you guys real soon. Hang in there.
Thank you so much. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks. Hang on. I'm going to end the broadcast.